We have Mary Reed from the Texas Apiary Inspection Service to visit with us a little bit about that program and what all they have going on. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
Hey, thanks, Jessica. And I'm going to try sharing my screen to show you my presentation. Let's see if we can do this. And all right, so can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jessica, for inviting me to speak as part of this program about our office. Like Jessica mentioned, my name is Mary Reed. I am the Chief Apiary Inspector for the Texas Apiary Inspection Service. And today I want to talk a little bit about our office, what we do, and then also a little bit about our beekeeping laws, and then some of the extracurricular activities that we do, outside of doing inspections. So to start off with a little brief introduction, our office was actually first established in 1910, and this was because there was new legislature enacted with the goal of suppressing foul brood, specifically American foul brood, which, at that time it was a widespread disease in the beekeeping industry, and a lot of states around this time created the same type of legislature to create an office where it was their job to try and get rid of this disease. And it wasn't until 1920 that we actually had our first chief apiary inspector, but ever since the inception of our office, we've been housed with Texas A&M University, which is kind of an interesting situation that we're a state agency, but we're administered by the university, and it works out really well because we are here. Our office is located here in College Station, so we have the entomology department right at our fingertips. A lot of great researchers there. So, if we ever see something out in the field, we've got quick and easy access to researchers. So as I mentioned before, other states have inspection services as well. And of course, they were created to try and combat American foul brood. And, all these offices were largely successful in their efforts. Today, American foul brood still exists, still can be a problem for beekeepers, but we don't see it at the same levels as we once did. So all these inspection services, across the nation and even in Canada, we are all looking for American foul brood, but then of course, the plethora of other pests and diseases that, you can come across in a honeybee colony. We collectively make an organization called the Apiary Inspectors of America. And the beauty behind this organization is that, it allows us to stay connected with other inspectors in other states, and in the provinces in Canada, so that if I'm seeing something strange in Texas, I want to see if other states are encountering the same issue, and so it's a really great collaborative, united group. So I pulled this directly from our inspection service website, and a few years ago when we were revamping our website, we wanted to, kind of have a clear mission statement. And so this is it, what we came up with. And in the end, our goal is to safeguard the apiary industry, yes, specifically in Texas, but then also, nationwide. And we do this through the application of science-based regulations, educational opportunities, and maintaining open communication with the industry. All three of which I think are really important in doing our work. So our office, we operate under the beekeeping laws here in Texas. It is Chapter 131, Bees and Honey. Our office actually does not deal with the honey aspect. That's with the Texas Department of State Health Services. We handle the beekeeping aspect, the health or pest and disease side of it all. This slide, this is actually pulled directly from our laws. We have these laws available, a copy of them available on our website. I tell people it's great bedtime reading. You know, if you really want to fall asleep real quick, you know, pull up the beekeeping laws and it'll do it for you. So this language I pulled directly from our laws, and this is, you know, the powers and duties that my office has. And when you read through it, I mean, the first time that I read through it, I thought it was really intimidating, you know, because it's talking about eradication, infectious diseases, preventing shipment, destruction, you know, all those terrifying words. You know, we have this is in the laws to allow us, you know, in those extenuating circumstances where, you know, there is an American foulbrood outbreak, or a novel invasive pest, you know, we have the ability to come in and try to isolate that situation and prevent it from spreading to other people's hives in the state and thus, you know, across the nation. So this is only used, you know, as needed, and hopefully, you know, I like to keep it to a rare occasion. As part of so we have our laws, Chapter 131, but under those laws we have our rules. And that's Chapter 71 Bs. I like to keep it simple. But what this is it's just to support the beekeeping laws. And these are also available on our website for you to access. So our inspection service, we, you know, our job is to cover the whole state. And this is my staff. So we're a small office with a big job. So there's me, and there's Bill Baxter, who's my assistant chief apiary inspector. He's actually been with our office for almost 30 years. He's an incredible resource, not only, you know, just for beekeeping information, but historical. You know, he was an inspector with the agency when Africanized honeybees were introduced, and he played a big part in doing a lot of public outreach, but also tracking the movement of Africanized honeybees through the state. So seen a lot, got a lot of great stories. If you ever have the opportunity to meet him, please do. Please sit down and chat with him. He's a joy to talk to. And then I have two other inspectors, Hannah. Hannah's been with us for, I believe, about 2 years. And then our most recent inspector is Taylor. She started back in March, but we kind of threw her in the deep end got her up and running and out doing inspections this spring. And she's really taken to it. So that's us. That's our office. So our primary role is to conduct health inspections. We primarily conducted these inspections for our migratory beekeepers. Texas is a really prominent migratory state. We have a lot of commercial beekeepers that bring their bees into Texas in the fall to overwinter. And then when if they go out to do almond pollination in California, a lot of beekeepers will come to Texas after that to utilize the great natural resources that we have blooming here in the spring and early summer. And so they'll use those resources to, you know, to make splits and raise new queens, et cetera, et cetera. So those are our two really busy times of years, and those are the beekeepers that we're out seeing. And we just want to make sure that, you know, all their operations are looking good. We do inspections for smaller scale operations as well. We typically rely on those beekeepers to call us and request an inspection. We don't typically seek out those beekeepers. So, you know, a small scale beekeeper is more than welcome to call or email our office at any time to request an inspection. On these inspections, what we'll do is we want to look at brood. You know, in the brood is where you're going to see any signs of problems, you know, pest, disease-wise. So we definitely want to look at a couple frames of brood on those inspections, but we also like to talk about, you know, any other beekeeping questions. I like to use that time to answer any questions the beekeeper might have, provide any resources that they might find useful. On a requested inspection, I tell beekeepers that, I'm there on your time. So, use me how you want to. Ask me anything that you want to. With these inspections, we can provide a certificate of inspection that's valid from 1 year from the inspection date. And that's kind of nice for some beekeepers to have, especially if they're selling bees or whether that's packages, nukes, whole hives, or if you're selling queen cells or queens. It's a nice thing to hand to your customers. If you're selling bees, you're not required to be inspected by our office. If you don't get inspected, you still have to provide your customers with a health affidavit that you create that says, you haven't been inspected by our office, but you believe your bees to be disease-free. So, and of course, we will do inspections, emergency inspections as needed. Typically on a requested inspection, there's a $75 fee that will cover that entire inspection. In emergency situations, where there's a real concern about disease, we are out there as soon as possible. We don't charge for the inspection. We want to make sure that the situation is handled, but we don't want that to be at the detriment of the beekeeper. This is just showing a list of permits that our office provides. Most of this pertains to our commercial migratory beekeepers. They're doing the ones that are importing from out of state. They're the ones taking their bees to other states. The intrastate one is for crossing county lines. So we have quite a few beekeepers that will apply for that. I'm going to skip bee removal for a moment. We'll come back to that. The queen certificate, that is typically applied for by our commercial queen producers. We have a good handful of those here in Texas. And so every year they request a special inspection, the queen inspection, to where we will look at hives in their queen yard where they're raising their cells or their mated queens. And then we'll also want to look at a few of their out yards where they're producing drones. And so from this inspection, we provide them with these special health certificate tags that they can attach to boxes that they may be shipping within Texas or out of state. So queen certificate, we usually reserve that for commercial beekeepers. We have quite a few smaller scale operations in Texas that may produce 50 queens and want to, sell them. I'll actually discourage you from getting a queen certificate. So I just don't, I don't see the point. We're still happy to do an inspection for you, but I don't want you to spend that $300, if you're just selling a small handful of queens. So bee removal, I kind of glanced over that, but I wanted to focus in on that a little bit. This has become a really popular thing in Texas. And so with this, we provide what's called the bee removal transportation permit. This is not a bee removal license. In Texas, there's no such thing as a bee removal license. So what this is, it's just a permit that allows a beekeeper to transport any bees that they collect from a removal across county lines. So it's just a movement permit for moving across county lines. The reason that we have it separated out from our regular intrastate permit is because we have some beekeepers that want to be listed on our website for the general public to contact them for bee removals. And so this permit allows us to separate out those beekeepers. If we get one of these permits, the first thing that we do is check to see if the beekeeper is registered with our office. And the reason for that is because registration for bee removal, registration is required under the structural pest control law in Texas. Beekeepers are exempt from getting a pest control license, but they are required to be registered with our office. So we want to make sure that, that box is checked under that law before we start issuing any permits. All right, let's see. So it's just a movement permit. It's not a license. And as I mentioned before, we utilize that permit to create this list of beekeepers on our website. And the main purpose of this is it's an act of public service. We want, the general public to be able to reach out to beekeepers to hopefully do live removals, but just as an alternative option for getting some bees removed from, wherever they're located. We do not, we don't know how these beekeepers operate, so we can't really endorse any one beekeeper over another. Typically what I'll do is if, someone calls our office and you have a bee removal, I'll direct tell them that's one option. Their other option is to call a pest control company. But I encourage them to call every beekeeper listed for their county, because you can vary, not just an experience level, but, availability. Beekeepers, can get really busy, especially in the springtime. Availability, charging, that sort of thing. We also have a disclaimer at the top of that webpage that we encourage the public to read, and basically what it says is it explains how these beekeepers got on this list. We also created a document that's on that page for the general public that just kind of gives them some background information about bee removals. It encourages them not to do the removal themselves, to have somebody with experience to handle the situation. And then it also lists some questions that they probably want to ask beekeepers when they're calling them. So apiary registration, this is another application form that we offer. Registration is not required in Texas. A lot of times I sense some confusion sometimes about 6 hives being an apiary and thus you need to be registered. It does not matter. You could have 1 hive and register with our office. You could have 10,000 hives and not be registered with our office, and that's okay. It's completely voluntary. If you choose to register your apiary locations with our office, it's free to do that. The application form is available on our website, and you can just fill it out and either email, mail it, or fax it. We still do fax it into our office. Another option for beekeepers is to get a brand number for their equipment. There is a $10 fee with this. And what it is, it's a number that we assign to the beekeeper. And it looks how it's provided here, where the first number is always 1 to represent Texas. This second number, every county has their own code. So whatever county your home address is located in, that will be right there. And then this final 3-digit number is, the beekeeper's sequential number. So if, I'm located in Brazos County, if I'm the first beekeeper to register in Brazos County, it'd be 1, the Brazos County code, and then 001. The beekeeper after me in Brazos County will be 002, and so on and so forth. Getting a brand, it is not required. It's just another option for both apiary registration and getting a brand number. This is a one-time thing, so if you do one or both, you don't have to renew it on an annual basis. It's a one and done. With apiary registration, if you, let's say, get to the point, you register your 1 location, but down the line you have 5 more locations and you want to register register those locations with our office, you're more than welcome to update your registration as needed. So hive identification, there's a little mention of that in the laws. And there's a couple options with this, one of which is getting that brand number. And the nice thing about the brand number is that number is only known by our office and the beekeeper. No one else knows that this, that is your identification number. So the other option is to either put your name and contact information on the boxes. That works just as well. Some beekeepers prefer the brand just because it's a bit more inconspicuous. But in either option, I know it uses the term branded. In either option, though, we don't actually require you to brand it onto your boxes. We understand that branding equipment can be expensive, and if you have 2 hives, it doesn't really make any sense to buy specialized equipment like that. So either painting it on or stenciling it on works great. I do not recommend using a Sharpie because the sun will just bleach that right off in no time. So painting, stenciling works great. Yes, I thought I had another thought along that, but I guess not. So, that was just kind of a brief overview with our beekeeping laws. For the most part, our laws pertain primarily to our migratory commercial operations. Very little of it plays, or requirements for small scale operations. But, with registration, getting a brand number, those are options, and requesting an inspection. So I want to move on to talking a little bit about how, beekeeping has kind of transformed over time and what that has meant for our inspection service. So here I provide a little historical review of, the introductions of different pests and diseases that the beekeeping industry has encountered. And as I started this presentation off mentioning American foul brood, at that time, it was a widespread problem. Today, beekeepers and inspection services do a really good job of mitigating that disease. So it's not seen as much, but it still exists. And I encourage beekeepers to learn about this disease because there's no treatment for it. There's no cure for it. So it's really critical to understand what it looks like, how to identify it, and what to do if you suspect American foul brood. And that's easy. What you do if you suspect it is you call me, and we'll work through it. We'll work to try and identify it for you, just to make sure that it's American foul brood and not something else. But as we progress through time, we have the introduction of tracheal mites, and then varroa mites, Africanized honeybees. 2006, we had the inception of the term colony collapse disorder. And I put question marks next because there's always something new out there. And I think recently with the news media frenzy about the Asian giant hornet, that can be problematic for honeybee colonies. It's a novel invasive pest. So that, I include that under the question marks. But there are other pests that can be detrimental to honeybee colonies that it's good to know about. It's good to know that they exist, so that, if you happen to be that unlucky beekeeper, and I hope you're not, that comes across this new pest, in your hive, you can recognize it immediately and know who to contact if it's an issue. So with all these, introductions and changes in the beekeeping industry and beekeeping and bee health, there's been this increase in demand for honeybee pollination. My favorite example to showcase this is almond pollination. This is probably the biggest pollination activity in the whole year. I probably need to update this, but at least back in 2017, there were about 1 million bearing acres of almonds in California. And they need about 1.7 million honeybee colonies to go out there to pollinate those trees. And that's a little over half of the number of colonies that are in the US, which is incredible to think about, that, you know, all these honeybee hives are moved across the entire country, you know, even from the East Coast out to California just for 2, maybe 3 months to pollinate for almonds, and then they disperse back across the country. And, you know, we expect to see an increase in the number of bearing acres in the future. And thus, you know, an increase in the demand for honeybee colonies. So currently, you know, we have about a little over 2.5 million colonies in the US. And, you know, with this increase in demand, specifically for pollination, you know, and that goes beyond almond pollination, but there's definitely an increased demand. We need new methods for at least maintaining our number of colonies, but of course the goal in the end is to increase our honeybee population. So we need some new solutions for the apiary industry to help improve honeybee health. So, you know, with these changes in the beekeeping world, you know, inspection services have kind of adjusted as well. One of my favorite parts about my job is that kind of act as a liaison between beekeepers and the research world. A lot of times, you know, beekeepers don't get the opportunity to interact with researchers and vice versa. So we, you know, kind of being those, you know, we go out and work in the field with beekeepers, and then especially in our situation here in Texas, we come back to our office. We're really close to the university and the researchers there. You know, we can act as this channel for beekeepers and researchers to convey information. So, you know, for beekeepers, we can, you know, translate new research that's coming out or new resources to them. But then also for researchers and talking to beekeepers and their concerns and issues that they're seeing and managing their operations, we can bring that back to researchers and, you know, express to them the concerns and issues that beekeepers are encountering. Some of the different groups that we've kind of worked with, Bee Informed Partnership. Some of you may have come across this organization. Every year they do a national colony loss and management survey. I encourage you to participate in it. But they also have what we call tech transfer teams. And I kind of like to think about them as crop consultants, but for beekeepers. And what they do is a beekeeper hires them. It's typically commercial beekeepers. I think they have an option for small scale beekeepers as well. But at least for commercial beekeepers, you know, they can hire these teams. The tech transfer teams will come out and visit the beekeeper's operation on a regular basis, collect samples, do an in-depth analysis of their operation. And the whole point is to, you know, really do a deep dive into the issues that a beekeeper is having in their operation. And in the end, hopefully improve their management practices. And, you know, if they're, let's say, using excessive treatments, you know, and they don't need to, you know, that's a benefit to the beekeeper and the bees, but for the beekeeper, an economic plus. So they do a really good job of gathering data and working with beekeepers to really fine tune their management plans. We do a lot of collaborations with research. One I like to point out is with the USDA. A lot of other states will participate in this as well, but we call it the National Honeybee Survey. And what we do is on inspections, we go out and collect samples of live bees, but then also bees in isopropyl alcohol. And then for some of the sampling, we'll collect either samples of wax or samples of pollen. And the wax and pollen samples are analyzed for the presence of pesticide residues. And then the bee samples are tested for resistance to miticides, and then also for, they're looked at for the presence of certain pests and diseases. And also they do viral counts. So, you know, the beekeepers that we sample from for this, they get a whole bunch of data thrown back at them. And this survey has been going on for at least 10 years, so that they've definitely accumulated a lot of data from it. And on the Bee Informed Partnership website, you can actually access this USDA information. I believe it's listed under USDA APHIS, National Honeybee Survey. So I encourage you to check it out. And you can even fine tune it to the state level. So for Texas, you know, you can click on Texas and look at the data over the years or in specific years, and see how it kind of changes from time to time. Another one I want to point out is the Community Health Coalition. This is an excellent resource for beekeepers. This is a organization that is made up of stakeholders across the apiary industry. So we have beekeepers, we have inspectors, we have researchers, we have people from the USDA, from the EPA, et cetera, all coming in together to work on issues in the beekeeping industry. One of their big ventures, or initial ventures, was to create the Tools for Varroa Management guide. If you have not seen this guide, I want you to tune out of my presentation right now and go check it out. It's an excellent resource for beekeepers, and it tells you everything you want to know, need to know about varroa mites, how to monitor for them in your colonies, how to manage for them. And this guide is free to download off of their website. And on that same webpage, they have videos that complement the guide, and then also another online tool that helps you figure out your management plan. So encourage you to check out the Honeybee Health Coalition. They do a lot of other work. It's not just about varroa. They work with growers that beekeepers may set their bees on their crops. So work a lot with different crop growers. Look at other disease issues. They've got a lot going on. So encourage you to check out their website. So, after in 2006, when we had the term colony collapse disorder, there was this huge interest in beekeeping, and especially at the urban and small scale beekeeping level. It's become extremely popular, which is fantastic. In Texas, since we don't require apiary registration, we actually don't know how many small scale beekeepers that we have, but I would estimate around 5,000 probably in Texas, and I think that's a safe estimate. Probably one of my favorite things about beekeeping, or at least the beekeeping community, is that it goes above and beyond the socioeconomic boundaries. I tell people you can do whatever you want as your career, but you can also be a beekeeper. And I think that's such a benefit to the apiary industry, because we have people involved who come from all sorts of different backgrounds and different perspectives, that we're all looking at one insect. And so I think a lot of great ideas come from that. So our role at the inspection service, with this increase in popularity of beekeeping, we've had to make some adjustments as well. Transforming from communicating primarily with commercial beekeepers, but now switching more to our small scale community, and then speaking more to non-beekeeping groups or beginning beekeeping audiences. So we work a lot with extension. We will work with homeowners, municipalities, agricultural clubs, et cetera, to, you know, answer any questions that they have, and you know, just speak more about the, you know, the benefits of beekeeping and how you can get into that. So with education, you know, we've kind of you know, seeing that this is a really key element for small scale operations. I'm a big proponent of educating yourself as a beekeeper about, you know, this little insect that you're caring for. So we, well, you know, prior to our current circumstances, we regularly present at bee schools around the state, as well as conferences, to, you know, interact and communicate with beekeepers of all levels, you know, of all different operation sizes. We also, you know, have this updated website that has a great pest and disease section. So it lists every pest and disease that you could possibly find in a honeybee colony. It has some pictures with each one, and kind of gives you a background, the biology of each pest and disease and how to identify it. We also created a best management practices document that it's not required, but we encourage beekeepers to take a look at it because it speaks more about managing for a healthy honeybee colony, but it also has information on there on how to manage hives in an urban setting, which I think is really important for beekeepers to think about. You know, if you're in a tight, you know, close quarters neighborhood and you want to have a beehive, I think that's great. But, you know, the onus is on you to make sure that that hive is not going to become a problem for your neighbors, or even if you're in a rural area, to make sure that it's not a problem for livestock. So there's some information on there, just as suggestions. But we have a lot of other educational resources on there, a lot of great websites for you to access for other universities, other research institutions that we think are valuable to beekeepers. This is our website. The link here is at the bottom, txbinspection.tamu.edu. Here at the top, we have a tab for forms and fees. That's where you'll see all those application forms that we talked about earlier to download. There's a for beekeeper section that has a lot of information. I think on the next slide, I've got a drop down that shows all the options there. Also got some information for the general public. This bee removal tab is where you will find that list of beekeepers, if you want to check that out. Just to bounce back, but here's the regulations tab. That's where you'll find the copies of the current beekeeping laws and our rules, and then you'll also see a shortened version of this talk on there as well. On the right-hand side here, we've got this icon, give us a buzz. So if you are on our website and you have a question that pops in your head or a comment, you can just click on here and it takes you to a page where you just put your name and email in there, and then you know, whatever you want to say to us. So encourage you to use that. This shows that drop down for beekeepers. This pests and disease section here, when you click on that, it'll actually take you to a page that lists, you know, all those pests and diseases. This just shows, if you click on the American foulbrood one, you know, all this great information, and it doesn't even show everything. But we also have information about integrated pest management, which I encourage you to learn about. A lot of great tools for IPM for beekeepers. This is that best management practices we talked about. Testing resources, what that provides, primarily listed on there, I know, is information about pesticide analysis. So if you get into the unfortunate situation where you're concerned that your bees were exposed to pesticide spray. The first thing that you need, well, a couple of first things that you need to do is first, number one, do not touch that hive. Second is to call the Texas Department of Agriculture, their pesticide office, and we have information listed under that section about that. The Texas Department of Agriculture are the ones who will handle a suspected pesticide kill. The importance of not touching your hive is you don't want to contaminate any samples that TDA may want to collect. But you want to act quickly because a lot of pesticides will degrade fairly quickly. So the quicker you can act, the better. There's some information there on honey. If you're interested in bottling and selling your honey, I mentioned this before, honey is under the Texas Department of State Health Services, but we have information under that section about the new changes to the bottling and selling of honey laws, which is beneficial to small scale beekeepers, but then also contact information for the Department of State Health Services if you have any additional questions, and then educational resources. So we got a lot going on there. Finally, just giving a little plug for the Texas Master Beekeeper Program. This is a program that we helped start back in 2015 with the Texas Beekeepers Association. We based it off of the Florida Master Beekeeper Program that was developed by Dr. Jamie Ellis at the Honeybee Lab there at the University of Florida. But the whole point of the program is to, increase your knowledge of beekeeping but mostly honeybees, honeybee biology, pests and diseases, a whole plethora of other topics to test, but to challenge yourself in it through taking exams. If a beekeeper chooses to progress through the different levels of the program, you complete what we call public service credits, where you are going out and talking to non-beekeepers about honeybees. And in the end, you're essentially acting as ambassadors for the apiary industry, which we could use more of those every day. But in the end, if that doesn't motivate you all, maybe this super awesome patch that you'll get with the program, maybe that'll do it for you. If you're interested in the program, we have a website for that as well, masterbeekeeper.tanvu.edu. We have information on there. I encourage you to check out the program requirements document. That'll give you all the details you need to know about each level of the program. Under these these apprentice, advanced master, and master craftsman are the 4 individual levels in the program. Under each one are videos. They're recorded PowerPoint presentations. These are available to everyone. So even if you don't care to be a part of the program, you can still go to this website, look under the apprentice section or advanced section, and check out those videos that are there. It's just another educational resource for anybody. Same over here on the right-hand side, we have that give us a buzz, so questions, concerns, comments. We also have an email listserv and a Facebook page for the program that we utilize to send out notifications and updates about the program. And then if you want to have a master beekeeper come out and give a presentation, or I don't know, get creative with your requests, you can do that through this link here for requesting a service from a Texas Master Beekeeper. So just to finalize all this, and at least in regards to our office, our main goal is to maintain a healthy honeybee population here in Texas, and we'll continue to do that through monitoring for the pests and diseases we already have, but then also keeping a lookout for anything new. We're also big proponents of educational programs, so we'll always promote and support those, but then also working with NGOs, other research groups, other institutions, you know, all in the good of promoting honeybees and their health. So I'd like to thank you for your time. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to us in the future, this is our office line here. And then this is also our email address that you can reach us at. So thank you.
Mary, I have a question.
Yes.
So when we talk about the Master Beekeeper program, do they have a required number of service hours? And as an extension agent, you know, we do the Master Gardener program, but how can I get people involved in the Master Beekeeper program as well?
Yeah, so the Master Beekeeper program operates a little bit differently than Master Gardener, and I don't claim to know the Master Gardener program extensively. But at least for the Master Beekeeper program, the first step is to take the apprentice level exam. If you know the beekeeper, after passing that exam, if they choose to continue on to the next level, we require them to complete at minimum 5 public service credits, and they can do more. They just can't do less. But they have to submit a binder showcasing those public service credits to us at the next exam in order to receive credit. And if they continue to choose to progress through the program, the number of public service credits that they have to do increases. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does. Does anybody else have any questions for Mary? Feel free to type them in the chat box or unmute yourself. So it looks like we don't have any questions. We will be doing the 3rd installment of this next Tuesday. Same time, I will send out a link. This time I will not mess up the date. I will make sure that I send Tuesday and not Monday first. But once again, thank you so much for your time, Mary. This was really good information. I know as an agent, I can think of several times in the last month when I could have used some stuff that was on that website. So I look forward to implementing that.
Yep,
yes,
happy to do it.
Tuesday on Teams.
Yep, happy to, and thanks for the invitation again, and I'm glad to speak to all of you.
Absolutely. So thank y'all, and if y'all have any questions, feel free to email either one of us. We'll see y'all next week.